What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of High Mythology, the show where we get higher than Thor's rage when you tell him you're out of beer, and we tell you guys silly stories from mythology and folklore.
Hello.
Today, we will be bringing you Norse Tales Volume 8, continuing the sagas. Yay. Yeah,
I thought it was time to knock some more out.
Time to knock some more sagas out. We're about halfway through the Prosetta. So, yeah, we're going to be getting down to the nitty gritty one of these days.
Yeah.
It's going to get nitty and it's going to get gritty.
Ragnarok is right around the corner.
Ragnarok is right around the corner. Put that on a t-shirt. Yeah. Without further ado, Kimbo, why don't you go ahead and take it away with the first story, The Lay of Hymir.
Hymir. Nice.
Hymir. Hymir.
The gods had plenty of food, but they had run out of mead and ale.
Oh, where's the womp? This party is totally lame.
They began to feast, but the more they ate, the less they felt like eating, with no drink to wash the food down. They sacrificed a small animal and dipped twigs into its blood. They shook them.
They get desperate for a drink. Yeah, we just bled a small animal dry and drank it.
Fucking 2 rabbits.
Yeah, it didn't get me drunk, but...
They shook them, and the runes scored on them began to shine. They shook them again, and they divined that Aegir, the god of the sea, could help them. So a group of gods and goddesses left Asgard and made for the island of Hilsi. And there they found Aegir and his wife Ran in their hall beneath the waves, lit only by gleaming gold. Look at all my gold.
It sounds like you're interrupting the romance.
For real.
Yeah. You had Barry White playing.
Probably after this one. The sea god was sitting at peace with Barry Manilow playing. The world. And as blithe as a child. Thor, the son of Odin, soon put an end to that. Quickly. He looked Aegir in the eye and almost blinded him. He commanded,
"Aye, Aegir, brew some ale for the gods. Brew it at once, and brew plenty of it."
Thor's abrupt tone angered Aegir. He lowered his eyes and considered how to repay him. He said,
"I've no cauldron that would hold enough. Bring me a big enough cauldron, Thor, and I'll brew ale for all the gods."
The gods and goddesses looked at each other. None of them owned a cauldron that was large enough, nor did they have the least idea where they could get one. Then the one-handed Tyr, always truthful, turned to the thunder god and volunteered, saying,
"My father, the giant Hymir, lives away to the east, beyond the stormy waves of the Evergar. I know he has a cauldron, a huge cauldron 5 miles deep."
Thor asked,
"Do you think we can get our hands on it, this water whirler?"
Tyr said,
"We could, but only if we are cunning. Do not reveal who you are. Call yourself Vir."
So Thor and Tyr set off at high speed at the same day, and that same day they reached Eagle's farm.
Yeah.
Where Thor left his high-horned goats, Tanzignot Tooth Grinder, and Tanzranini Gattooth.
Tanzranini Gaptooth, you're my boy.
Then the gods headed east and crossed the Ilavagar. What'd you call it?
Ilavagar.
Ilavagar.
I just said words that sounded kind of Viking.
That seems right.
Ilavagar.
They traveled almost to the end of the earth and the sky above, and at last they came to Hymir's hall. It stood on a mountain quite close to the sea. The first person they came across was Tyr's grandmother, for whom Tyr had very little love.
Oh, Tyr.
She was a monster with her 900 heads. That's it. Tyr shook his head and marveled greatly. But then Tyr's mother walked into the hall. She had the most beautiful pale skin and wore a necklace and armbands of gold. She welcomed her son and Thor and brought them goblets of ale. She said,
"Oh, giant's blood runs in my veins. I know it's wet, brave as you both are, maybe. I think you better hide beneath one of the cauldrons. My husband has a rather brusque way of greeting his guests, eating his guests, feeding his guests."
As might be expected, Thor had little liking for this suggestion, but Tyr sided with his mother and asked Thor what he stood to lose by being a little cautious. And so they waited in safety until the ugly Hymir came in late from hunting. As he walked into the hall, the icicles hung from his frozen beard clinkled and chinked.
Clink, chink, clank, clink, chinkle.
Hymir's wife got up to greet him.
"Ooh, greetings, Hymir. You've got good reason to be happy. Your son is here in the hall. How long we've waited while he journeyed far and wide, and he has brought a companion with him, the foe of Fred, and my friend Tobin. He is called Ver.
Hymir's gentle wife tried to soften the heart of her husband. She said,
"Look at them sitting at the end of the hall, under the gable, hiding behind one of those supports and hoping it will guard them. Hopping. I like to imagine
There's two
they're
P's in
hopping too.
Is there two P's?
No, there's not. There's just one. But I still like to imagine them just hippie hopping in like a couple of little bunny rabbits."
Okay. Well, the giant glared balefully at the support and at one of the gable's crossbeams cracked. Then 8 well-tempered cauldrons toppled and fell off from the shelf. They crashed onto the hall floor and smashed into smithereens. Only one did not break, and under, which was Thor and Tyr, were sheltering. The 2 gods crawled out from underneath the rim, and Hymir faced them. The old giant's eyes glittered, and he pierced them with his gaze. But when he saw Horon's sworn enemy step into the open, he felt uneasy himself and knew no good would come of his visit. All the same, made due provisions, for his guests, he gave orders to his servants that no less than 3 oxen should be slaughtered and flayed and boiled.
Less than 3, no more than 5.
At once his servants lopped off the heads of the cattle and carried them to the cauldron, hanging over the fire. The meal was prepared, and before he went to sleep that night, Sif's husband, Thor, astonished Hymir by devouring 2 whole oxen. Hymir, the friend of Hrungnir, which we're getting to him later.
Hrungnir.
So Hymir is a friend of Hrungnir. He said,
"If the 3 of us want to eat again, we'll have to go out hunting." Ho, ho, ho.
Then Vior said to the savage giant,
"Let us go out rowing then, and see what we can get. All I need from you is bait."
Hymir said,
"Help yourself from the pasture where my herd is grazing. I've no doubt, giant killer, that you'll find a turd or 2 there easily enough." Fish with turd.
That is seriously what it says out of the book, by the way.
Hot turd.
I'm not joking.
Nothing gets fish like a hot turd.
The god at once made his way out of Hymir's hall into the steep pasture surrounding it. There he found a splendid black ox. Fuck me.
The big black fuck me ox.
Himinhirjot.
Himinhirjot.
Himinhrjot.
Himinhirjot.
The heaven blower.
The heaven blower.
Bellower.
Bellower. Okay.
Sorry.
The heaven blower.
Bellower. The giant killer grabbed his high horns and wrenched them apart until they snapped. And then he broke the beast's neck.
Jesus.
Hymir grimly says,
What you ate was bad enough, but it seems to me that you're even more of a nuisance left at large than sitting by my fire.
Hymir and Thor left the others behind in the hall and went down to the
I
sea.
mean, there was no reason for you to kill that thing. It was just standing there minding its own business, and you just kind of murdered it.
They launched the giant's boat and began, to begin with, Thor manned the oars. Then Hymir took over. The giant, kinsman of apes, rowed well out from the land and then shipped his oars so that he could start to fish. Thor urged,
Further! Row further!
Hymir replied,
I don't want to row one stroke further with you, cow murderer.
The fierce giant began to prepare his tackle. He fixed his hooks into his line and cast it over the gunwale.
Oh.
Almost at once, the line tightened, and Hymir hauled up 2 whales, hissing and sighing and churning in the water into a maelstrom. Maelstrom. Maelstrom.
Maelstrom. Maelstrom.
Wow.
It's like a regular storm, but with a big fat boner.
Odin's son, Björn, was sitting in the stern, and he prepared his gear with great care. The slaughterer of monsters and the guardian of men baited his hook with the head of the oxen. Heaven bellower. Then he cast his line into the dark water. Under the waves, the enemy of the gods, the serpent surrounding Midgard, let go of his own tail and gaped and took the bait.
Jormungandr.
Thor did not hesitate. Fist over fist, he
Fish
quickly
on!
pulled in his line. Jormungandr, the serpent, Midgard serpent, lashed in the sea into a frenzy. The water fizzed and frothed, but the thunder god did not loosen his grip. He dragged the monster up under the keel and began to haul it over the gunwale. Then Thor raised his hammer and it sang a grisly song on the hairy head of the terrible serpent, brother to Fenrir.
Damn.
The serpent roared, and the mountains of Jotunheim's heard and replied.
Ow.
Midgard shuddered, and Jormungandr tugged at the great barb, pierced the roof of his mouth.
Ow.
It twisted and wrenched, and at last, with a tearing of the flesh, it set itself free. The serpent sank once more to the bottom of the sea,
get you someday,
shaken and
Thor.
appalled by what he had seen.
I am appalled. by
Hymir
your
had
behavior.
no heart for words and made heavy weather for the homeward journey.
Just sitting there tripping out. What the fuck just
fuck?
happened? He killed my bull for no reason, and then he just popped the fucking world serpent on the nose. Who the fuck is this guy?
First, he pulled strongly on one oar and then the other, in the hopes of picking up a following wind to carry them closer to land and into calmer water. When the keel finally scraped the shingle and the boat lodged, Hymir said,
There's enough work here for 2 pairs of hands. Would you drag the boat up beyond the tide and secure it, or would you rather pull the whales back to my hull?
Without even bothering to reply, the charioteer stood up and stepped out of the boat. He grabbed the prow of his mast, with his, the mast. I can't read it all. It's in the middle. Okay. His massive fist. He pulled and grabbed the prow with his massive fist.
I think he's doing something. Is he just like beating off in front of this guy to show him? Like, without saying a word, he just whipped it out, started going to town, just direct eye contact.
Now he's grabbing the boat.
Yeah. Hymir did not know what to make of this scenario.
He doesn't know what to make a lot of this scenario. He grabbed the prow with his massive fist and began to raise it. The bilged water sloped and swirled back to the stern. Then the god began to drag the boat with the 2 whales and the oars and the great baler still inside of it. He hauled it across the sand and threw of birch wood and over hill until he reached Hymir's hall. Fuck you. Tyr and his mother welcomed them there and marveled at Thor's feat in bringing the boat and the cargo up from the sea. Even now, stubborn Hymir would not own that he had come off second best, and he resolved on another test of strength. He said,
"You're a fair oarsman, certainly, but so are many others. I'd only call a man strong if he were able to smash this glass goblet."
The charioteer took the goblet from Hymir and promptly hurled it against one of the stone pillars supporting the gable. The hall was filled with bits and pieces of flying masonry. Then one of the giant's servants hurried down to the end of the hall and picked up the goblet from the heap of rubble.
Hip, 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 hip.
It was unbroken, and he brought it back to Hymir. Hymir's wife bent her head towards Thor, and she whispered,
"Ooh, throw it at his head. He eats so much that it's almost solid. However hard that glass is, his head must be harder."
So then the charioteer stood up again, and he turned to face Hymir.
Pop!
With all of his divine strength, he threw the goblet straight at the giant's forehead.
"You are not a good guest."
Hymir's skull remained intact, but the wine goblet fractured and fell to the floor in 2 pieces. Hymir bent down to pick them up and put them on his knees and stared at them. He said sadly,
"With the loss of this goblet, I lose far more than a goblet."
The giant shook his head as if suddenly all his strength had ebbed from him. He said,
"What's mine is yours now. My last cauldron is yours. I cannot stop you from taking it. Even so, it will be a mighty task to cart it out of this hall. I'll never be able to say again, 'Brew for me, cauldron, cauldron, brew me ale.'"
Tyr did not need to be invited twice. He jumped up and took hold of the cauldron and began to pull, but he was unable to move it. Hymir looked at him and smiled sourly. Then Tyr tries again. He fills his lungs and pulls, but the cauldron only rocked and settled back into its original position. Now Thor seized the rim, and the cauldron was so massive that Thor exerted so much pressure that his feet splintered the wood planks and broke right through the hall. Then the god hoisted the vast cauldron onto his shoulders and strode out of the hall.
Peace.
Its handles...
Who the fuck is this guy?
Its handles yapped at his ankles. Thor and Tyr had not gone far before Thor turned around, wanting to have the last look at Hymir's hall. It was just as well that he did. The first thing he saw was Hymir and the whole throng of many-headed giants who had left their lairs in the east were coming after him. Thor eased...
It looks like an ant carrying a fucking grape.
Exactly. Thor eased the massive cauldron from his shoulders and set it down on the ground. Then his hands were free to take grip on Mjolnir. He stood his ground and swung his hammer, and not a single monster, not one prowler of the wilderness was able to withstand it. Now Thor shouldered the cauldron again, and the 2 gods hurried on. It was not long before they reached Ingol's farm, where Thor had left his chariots and the goat. Though one, thanks to Loki, was lame and limped in its harness. Thor returned home while the gods were meeting in solemn assembly at the well of Urd, under the branches of Yggdrasil. All the gods gazed at the cauldron, amazed, and they acclaimed Thor and his companion Tyr. So Aegir was outwitted, and Thor gave him the cauldron and took away his pride. And that winter and every winter, the gods drank tides of warming ale brewed for them by the sea god's gleaming hall.
At least he got rid of Thor for 15 minutes so he could finish banging, though.
Mm-hmm. At least 20 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, that fucking... It's funny how many of Thor's journeys in that way, too. Yeah, I went to this place. It was kind of silly at first. Well, how did it end? I murdered everyone. Yeah, just murdered them all.
They made fun of me for wearing a dress.
Yeah, so 200 people
Let's never
had to
talk
die.
about this again. Everyone must die.
Everyone must die. So you went to spring break. How was that? Oh, it was all right. No, then a guy talked shit, so I murdered everyone,
Yeah. Yes, that's all of his.
Yeah, that was a fun one. That was a fun little story. Now we're going to move on to Hindler's poem. Go ahead, Kim.
It's like Hilda.
Hilda.
I want to call it Hilda.
Hindler.
Hilda.
Hindler.
The giantess
Hindler.
Hilda was asleep. She was growling in her gloomy cave, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. Freya and her boar stood at the cave's mouth, listening. Then Freya called out,
Hindler, my friend. Hindler, my sister. Wake up, come out of your hole in the hill.
The growling gave way to a sound like a birch howling in the moon. The giantess was yawning. Freya called out,
It's dark in there, and it's getting dark out here, and we must go to Valhalla together. We must win Odin's favor. He's always open-minded with his followers. He gave a helmet and a coat of mail to Hermund, and gave a sword to Sigmund even.
Now there was only silence within. Hilda was listening. Freya said,
Oh yeah, and also to some he gives gold, like to others he gave them glory in battle. Many people he gives wisdom and word skill. I'm not sure that's a word, but I'm going to use it as a word anyway.
That's what it says.
Fair winds. He gives fair winds to the sailors. He also crafts to the poets. He gives the poets some crafts. And a stout heart to many a hero. And he gave me a pack of Virginia Slims yesterday and a scratch-a-ticket.
Freya paused for a minute, and then she called out,
I didn't win the scratch-a-ticket. I'll pay court to Thor as well, and I'll ask him always to look kindly on you and stuff, and support you. Although he has a little love for giant women, he only likes regular sized women. He's really kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. He's murdered 700 people by now.
A large, unwholesome face loomed out of the gloom of Hilda's slouched out of a cave. She was dressed in something like sacking. Freya says,
Bring one of your wolves from its lair and, let him and my boar run in the harness. My boar cannot carry us both. Or hurry on the way to Asgard. He is a marvel, and I don't want to run him into the ground, He's a really good boar.
Hilda paused and looked at the goddess with beady eyes, and she said,
Nonsense! Patience, pretense and promises! You can't even look me straight in the eyes. Well, I'll tell you straight, that's no boar. That's your lover, you boar fucker. Young Odard and the son of Einstein. Not Einstein, but Einstein. You're riding your lover on the road to Valhalla.
Freya said,
Don't we all wish we could ride our lovers all the way to Valhalla? I mean, if there's a way to go, right? Oh, and you're full of wild ideas. My lover beneath me on the road to Valhalla. This is my battle boy. Hilda's Vinny. The golden bristles show him the way in the dark, He was made by master smiths, the dwarves Bane and Nabby.
Hilda said nothing. She just sniffed and started.
Smells like bullshit.
Started to back away into her cave.
Stop sniffing at me. That's very strange. You're creeping me out.
Freya would not give up and would not go away. She wrangled and she wheeled and she cajoled and she threatened and she made promises. And in the end, she won the giantess's half-hearted agreement that they should journey to Asgard together. The giantess says,
Little choice if I want any peace.
As Freya had suggested, the
Bull
giantess
fucker?
rode a wolf and the goddess mounted her boar.
Of course she
The
did.
two animals ran in harnesses, and at last the travelers reached the gates of Valhalla. They reined in beside Valgrind, the outer gate, and the deer Heidrun, who was grazing there. Water streaming from its horns bounded away to safety.
Bounded to safety.
Freya and Hilda dismounted and walked down to the banks of the torrent Thrund. Freya says,
Let us talk of the ancestry of two heroes. Ottar the Young and Agnethir, two men fathered by gods.
Hilda
Let's
smiled.
just, for small talk.
Hilda smiled a half smile of one who knows the truth always comes out in the end. And sniffs the air at her. The goddess cries.
Ottar raised an altar to me, you know. He built up the stones and stuff, and he painted it. It looks really nice. And now they have turned to glass. He reddened the altar again and again with the blood of oxen. Ottar always put his faith in the goddesses, you know. He was always there for me.
Freya took a step towards the giantess. And she continues to say, sorry.
Now tell me the names of the ancients and like the kindred, which men of Skaldjongs, which are Skilfings, Othings and Yofings, you know, who are the firstborns and like who are the highborns and who are the most noble men in Midgard. Let's just gossip, girly.
Hilda looked at Freya, and then she looked at the boar and took a deep breath. She said,
You, Ottar, are the son of Einstein, and was the son of Alf the Old. Alf sprang of of Safari. Yeah, say fairy. And Safari's father was Svan the Red.
Yeah, she does a lot of the shit. Good luck. Alf of the old.
Alf of the new. Alf of the 70s sitcom.
The boar had pricked up his ears and was listening carefully. The giantess says,
Your mother, your mom, adorned with gleaming gold bracelets, was the priestess Hildis. Her father was Frodi, and her mother was Frert. Her lineage was peerless. Frert's mother was Hildgun, who was the daughter of Swava and Silkunga. They're all your kinsmen, Ottar, you fool. It's a lot to remember. Do you want to hear more?
The boar was listening, and so was Freya. The giantess resumed.
Hildgun's husband was Ketil, so he was your mother's grandfather on your mother's side. Frodi came before Carrie and Holf, sprang of Hild, none of the daughter of Nuki Nuke. Come next, and her son married your father's sister. Yeah, that lineage is long and even longer. They're all your kinsmen, Ottar, you fool.
The giantess continues.
Isulf and Olsulf, the sons of Omen, whose wife was Gerhard, daughter of Skili, they would be counted among the noblest of heroes, and they're all your kinsmen, Ottar. Guess what? You fucking fool.
Then the giantess said, yeah,
There are 12 berserkers. Here Odin, here Vord, Granny and Angrenir, Bui and Brahmi, Bari and Rifnir, Ten and Trifing and the two Holdings. Those were the sons of Egrim and Ufsufsver, born long ago in the island of Bosmo. Howling and foaming in the frenzy, they left a trail of terror and leaped like wildfire over the land and water. And they're all your kinsmen, you motherfucking fool, Ottar.
it's so funny, the names you say. I was like,
they're horrible
what?
pronunciations, by the way. Turfing and Nerfing and Scarfing. Skildsgard and Norseguard.
I feel like you're not even taking a second to look at him. You're like, Bob, Barney.
Bob, Barney, Bob, Bobberoon, Bobbert, Robert, Robbie.
Granny, Angretir, Bui, Brami,
The two
Bari,
headings, Rifnir, Barry,
Rinfnir,
Eng,
Tin,
Engetnir,
Tirfring,
Engentir, Engentir,
Hading,
Engentir, Buoy,
Girfra,
Buoy, Foaming,
Bolso.
Foaming,
Bulmso.
Frenzy,
You called it Bolsmo.
Ball Smoke, Ball Smoke.
It's like you got the whole thing like
I'll
completely.
tell you, fool.
The giantess narrowed her eyes and raised a horny finger.
Look at this.
She says,
This is my tickle finger. I'm going to put it up inside you. Tickle you from the inside.
"Oh, wait, sorry."
I'm just going to get that finger and I'm going to slide it right in there. Just nice and gentle.
Good luck.
Long, long ago, all the sons of Yarmek were given to the gods in sacrifice. Now Yarmanrek was one of Sigurd's kinsmen. Mark my words carefully. Sigurd, who could stand against all, slayer of the dragon Fafnir. The hero Sigurd was Volsung's grandson, and his mother was Hjordis, and the Hrundungs. Her father was Emil, Emily, hey, of the Oathings. And they're all your kinsmen. Otar, you motherfucking fool. And in case you want more reference, we did do an episode about Sigurd.
Yeah.
And Siegfried saga.
Yeah. They got a lot more sagas in there.
Mm-hmm. The sons of Genki and Grabdale and Grana and Hogni and his daughter was their sister, Gudrun, Sigurd's wife. The third son, Guthorn, was not fathered by Gjerki. They're all your kinsmen, Otar, you motherfucking fool.
Jesus Christ, bitch.
Avandir's father was Hjorvard, and Haki was the best of his son. Harold Wartooth was the son of Ode, and a husband, Rorik, the Raingiver. Erd, the Profound, was Ivar's daughter, but Rathbard was the father of her son, Randvir, and they're all your kinsmen. You motherfucking fool.
Freya looked at the giantess in triumph.
I was just asking a question. I mean, you really took that one way further.
And she said,
Otar and Agnathia have made wager. You know, they've staked the whole inheritance on the matter of the lineage. So now give my boar the memory beer, so that when Otar and Agnathia meet 3 days hence, he'll remember your fine recital, every word of it. We must protect Einstein's well-earned wealth, his family heirlooms, so that the young hero can enjoy them.
The giantess opened her rotting, carnivorous mouth and yawned. She said,
Go the fuck away. I want to go sleep again. I'm not doing this any more favors for you. Fucking
She said to Freya without looking,
Boar fucker. My noble goddess, you leap around at night like Hindler, cavorting with a herd of goats, you goat fucker.
Freya slowly raises her arms and says,
I will, girdle you with flames so you cannot leave this place without catching fire, if you don't shut your whole mouth.
Hilda laughed in content and said,
Oh, you've gone running to Ed, who has always loved you, and many others, who has warmed his way under your apron, like those 4 dwarfs, dwarf fucker. My noble goddess, you leap around at night like Hydron cavorting with a herd of goats. Goat fucker.
Then there was a fire in Asgard, dancing in the air. A band of flames, a quivering halo, surrounded the giantess. Her limbs tightened, and she pressed her arms against her sides. The giantess called out,
Flames about me! The earth is on fire, and I must pay the full price or forfeit my life.
Hilda flinched as the girdle began to tighten. She called,
Odar's draught of memory beer, take it. It's full of venom. I'll bring him to an evil end.
So Freya says,
Oh, shut up. That's just a bunch of nonsense. It is you who is full of bitterness and rancor. Your threats will do no harm, though.
The goddess was smiling and deuce. She trailed her fingers down the board's back and said,
I'm gonna fuck you tonight. Odal will drink nothing but the best. If I get my way with the gods, Odal will prosper.
The end.
The end. Yeah. Did she ever let the giant out of the flames? Nope. Nobody knows.
Oh, she's a fucking goddess. They're not really
They're not
kind.
really nice to the giants. They're kind of rude.
They're gods.
They're gods. They're gods, and they're in a war with the giants, kind of.
They're dicks.
It doesn't seem like most of the giants realize there's a war.
It's like all gods. They're all dicks at some point.
They are. Even the goddesses. Big hanging danglers.
Clearly, this one explores her sexuality.
Yeah, she does.
Woo!
Yeah, she really explores it. Yeah. So we're going to jump into the third story. Bam, bam, bam. Thor's duel with Hrungnir. Hrungnir. Woo! The fake crowd goes wild.
Odin, god of gods, was not content with being able to see everything that happened in the nine worlds. He was also not content with being able to understand all that he saw. His blood raced, and he longed to test life's winds and tides for himself. While Thor was away fighting trolls and troll women and their wolf children in Ironwood.
Oh, he's fighting trolls. Okay, that's good. And troll women? Wait, what's he doing? He's slaughtering wolf children? Those are called puppies.
Odin brittled at his own lack of action. He became so restless that he donned his golden helmet and leaped onto Sleipnir, hungry for some happening.
I'm hungry for some happening.
Sleipnir vaulted the torrent sword beside Valhalla and then the old river that snaked through the canyon. He sprang heeled over and broad, gleaming river and rivers teeming with spears, and his 8 hooves clattered as he gallops over scree. For hour after hour, Odin rode towards Jotunheim across utterly dreary country.
Gonna go fuck some shit up.
At first, flat and tossy and pocketed with small desert lakes, then flat and stony, and a sea of slabs where nothing lived and nothing grew. At last, where the land began to swell in some places to smoke, leveled by fires far below the earth's crust, Odin came to the hall of Hrungnir, strongest of all the giants. Hrungnir demanded,
Oh, hey there, buddy. Who are you?
Wow. The raider pulled his blue cloak close to him and titled his wide-brimming hat forward and said nothing. Hrungnir says,
Oh yeah, pal. I've been watching you there. I saw you coming with your gold helmet there. It was flashing under the sun. You seem to be riding as much through the air as on the ground there, huh? That horse you got really moves. What's that, 300 horsepower?
Hrungnir rubbed his enormous nose and continued to say,
Oh, that's an uncommonly fine horse you got there with some 8 legs, huh? 6 legs you got there, 8.
Odin retorted,
Better than any in Jotunheim, that's for sure.
The giant replied,
Oh yeah, buddy, that's what you think.
So Odin said,
That's what I know, you son of a bitch.
As he spoke, Hrungnir's temper was raising, he said.
Oh, sorry there, pal. Yeah, what do you know of Jotunheim, little man? You know, don't be so certain about what we got around here. It's more than just maple leaves and bacon, which is what we call ham.
Odin says,
I'm certain enough to wager my head on it, you son of a bitch.
Hrungnir bellowed.
Oh, yeah? Oh, you fool. Have you never heard of a gold mane?
Odin asked,
Who?
Hungnir shouted.
Oh, yeah, my horse there, Goldmane. She's as fast as your horse, maybe. You never know. Goldmane will gallop him into the ground right over there, I think.
Odin spat, saying,
Gab! All fucking gab! You son of a bitch.
Hungnir called out with a booming voice that bounced off the back of the mountain walls.
Oh, hey there, Goldmane, old buddy. Sorry to bother you. You mind coming over here real quick for a minute?
Odin called, spurring Slipnir into a gallop.
My head, Hrungnir, come and collect it, you son of a bitch.
By the time Hungnir had sprung onto Goldmane, the helmeted one was already on the other side of the smoking hill. The god and the giant raced across the flatlands, and neither gained ground on the other. They raced into the uplands, and Hungnir had no thought for anything but the chase. They crossed the 19 rivers, and before the thick-headed giant had taken stock of where he was, he found himself inside the walls of Asgard. Then, at last, he realized that who his visitor had been. Odin was waiting for Hungnir beside Valgrind in the outer gates of Valhalla. Odin said,
That's an uncommonly fine horse you've got there.
Hungnir glared at Odin, angry but unable now to do anything about it. Odin says,
You must be thirsty after such an exertion. Let Goldmane drink from this torrent fund, and you, Hungnir, come and drink in Valhalla.
Odin led the way under the roof of shields and spears, and his wolves, Friki and Giri, at once got up and lopped towards him.
Lop, lop.
Ranks of warriors filled the benches, feasting and drinking after the day's slaughter.
Yeah, it's a good
And when
slaughter.
they saw the giant, they began to shout. It was an awesome noise, as if the sea were caught in the mighty halls and waves were breaking on the strands of stone.
Who's this son of a bitch?
The father of battle raised one of his hands as the clamor began to die down. He called out,
Hungnir comes unarmed. He comes in peace. Let him drink and leave in peace.
Hrungnir says,
Oh, yeah, buddy, I'd totally have a beer there, but how could I drink without, a horn in my hands?
Then the Valkyrie axe time and raging brought out 2 massive horns from which Thor was used to drink. Both were brimming with ale, and Odin says,
Drink, that's your thirst against our finest trenchermen.
All of the company in Valhalla watched as Hungnir tossed off one horn without taking a breath, and then did so with the other, with such a tide of ale that even Thor might have had trouble with it. It was not long before the giant began to feel the effects. He shouted suddenly,
Yeah, buddy, I will.
Yep. Yep. Odin looked at Hungnir with his one eye glittering, and he murmured,
Hey, buddy, surely not there. How?
The giant shouted again.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I will.
He waved his arms and, thrusting his head forward, glared at Odin and said,
Oh, yeah, I'll pick up this old little piffling haul here and just carry it off back home with me to Jotunheim.
The warriors sitting on the
We'll
benches.
watch some hockey.
The warriors sitting on the benches roared with laughter. Hrungnir swung round to face them. He meant to take steps towards them, but his balance was wrong and he reeled sideways. And he bellowed,
Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, I'm good. Oh, I'm gonna sink this ash garden to the sea here. Yeah, over there. Sorry.
Odin folded his arms. His mask-like face hid his thoughts. And after a while, he asked rather casually,
Then what is to become of us?
Hrungnir shouted,
Oh, yeah, no, you guys over here, you'll be just fine, I just, well, no, I'm probably gonna kill you there, you're gods and warriors, so I'm just probably gonna smash you.
The giant brought his fist down onto the trestle table, and its end leaped up, and the table danced and fell flat on its face. There was not so much noise in the hall then. Everyone was watching Hrungnir, and the giant said,
Well, all of them except for you two. I kind of like you two fellers over here.
He was pointing at Freya and Sif, fairest of the goddesses. And he continues to say,
Good guys here. You look like a pair of good guys over there. I'll take you back with me and, probably find a youth or something you can do.
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink.
Odin nodded, and Freya sidled forward. And as she moved, all the jewels that she was wearing flashed and glimmered. And Hrungnir tried to rub the stars out of his eyes. Freya says,
Drink again, honey.
And she poured a lot more ale into one of the horns. The giant demanded,
Oh, buddy, is that your voice? You got a really deep voice there. Not really what I expected with your body over there, Is that all the ale in this all, huh? Oh, you could drink every drop there of ale in Asgard, I think.
But although the giant drank more and more, he did not fall into a stupor as Freya had planned. He simply assaulted the company with a stream of boasts.
He drank his way out of depression.
The gods and warriors soon became tired of them, and Odin sent a messenger to find Thor in Ironwood and ask him to return to Asgard at once. It was not long before Thor bursted into the halls, swinging his hammer, and he shouted,
What is this? What is next? Do you want me to put the hammer down?
No one had seen him more angry, even when Loki had cut off Sif's hair. He continued to say,
What next, when sly devils of giants can hope to drink in Valhalla?
Hrungnir looked at Thor beardily and hiccuped. Thor demanded,
Who says you can drink here? And why is Freya waiting on you? Is this feast in honor of the giants?
The giant waved an arm in the direction of Odin, and the giant burbled.
Well, yeah, buddy, he's safe conduct towards your Odin over here. He invited me over in here, over there, to hang out over here in here.
Thor says,
Easier to get in than out.
Tightening his hold on the hammer and raising it again.
You want me to put the hammer down?
The giant said,
Yeah. If you kill me here and I'm like unarmed and stuff, it won't add much fame for for fame, except for, foul play and stuff like that. And they'll be talking on the internet. They'll say it was conspiracy,
Drunk as he was well understood he still had to escape from Valhalla unscathed. And he knew, too, what would touch Thor more closely.
So he continued, you a hand job there.
So he continued to say,
it should be better. It's just much better just for your bravery,
Thor asks,
What in the fuck did you just say?
The giant says,
Oh, if you dared fight me, over here.
Thor repeated the word between his teeth.
Can I put the hammer down?
Dared.
Dared?
Hrungnir says,
I challenge you to, meet me on the borders of Jotunheim and Asgard, and we'll fight at the Grashgard, fucking stone Finn's house over there.
Thor looked at the giant and saw that he too was earnest. Hrungnir says,
what a great fool I am to have left my own and my shield there at home. If I had my weapons here, we could probably settle it, but, if you mean to kill me unarmed, I hate to say you're a coward, but that's what they're going to say on the Twitter.
No one had dared challenge Thor to a duel before, and that the Thunder God was eager to accept. He told the giant,
You can count on it. I do not break faith. Do not break faith with me.
Then Hrungnir barged out of Valhalla without a backward look. He heaved himself onto Goldmane's back and galloped away to Jotunheim as fast as he could.
Oh, yeah, I got a little too drunk over there.
When the giants heard about Hrungnir's journey to Valhalla and his forthcoming duel with Thor, they thought that he had won a great honor. And they said,
"You have won the first part of a famous victory."
But for all the giants were uneasy and anxious. They knew that if Hrungnir lost the duel and was killed, that would be a bad hour for Jotunheim. They said,
If you do not win, what can we expect? You're the strongest of us all.
At Grotun Agdar, there was a river with
yes, that's the word I said.
there was a river with a bed of clay. The giant said,
"Let us dredge it. Let us mold a man so vast that Thor will shake at the sight of him."
So the giants worked night and day and piled up the clay and made a mountain of a man. He was 9 leagues high and measured 3 leagues across the chest from armpit to armpit. He may be so tall that the clouds gathered around his head. And the giant said, wow, sorry. The giant
But he
said,
is nothing but clay. What are we going to do about his heart and his wiener? He needs a big old wiener if he's going to scare Thor.
He does. Gets angel vagina.
I say we make a propeller so it just constantly swings around. Just woof, 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 woof.
I totally was envisioning a windmill. I'm like, that's interesting.
Yeah. Like a windmill,
flower.
but just like a windmill, but just with one peg and it's a penis.
How about a flower? We don't need to see anything. Just a leaf.
Just a leaf. Yeah.
The giants were quite unable to find a heart anything like large enough. In the end, they killed a mare and put her heart into his body. Its pump was enough to give the clay life, but rather too unsteady to inspire much confidence. They called this clay Giant Mist Calf.
I am Miss Calf.
And told him to wait by Grotten Gardar.
Okay.
On the appointed day, Hrungnir headed for the stone fence house, and unlike Mist Calf, his heart gave others heart. It was made of unyielding stone, sharp edges, and 3-cornered. Hrungnir's head was made of stone too, and so was the great shield he held in front of him as he waited for Thor. With his other hand, he grasped a huge hone, and he shouldered it and was ready to hurl it. Hrungnir looked very nasty and very dangerous. Then Thor, the son of Earth, angrily sprang into his chariot, and Thialfi leaped in beside him. That's his homie, his little page boy.
Hi.
It rocked beneath them, and the charioteer brawled, and at once the 2 goats strained at their harnesses, and the chariot rattled out.
Like to imagine they're playing 80s metal, too. The one-way ticket to midnight.
That seems right. It just seems like that's what Thor was listening to. The moon's path quivered and echoed. Lightning flared and flashed, and men on Middle-earth thought the world itself was about to catch fire. Oh. Then hail lashed the ground. It smashed frail sticks and flattened fields of grass, and men quailed within their walls. Headlands were shaken by such storms that gullies and rifts and gashes and chasms opened underfoot, and rocks and boulders cascaded into the curling sea. They rolled into Jotunheim towards Grotungagdar.
Gardar.
Then Telfi jumped out of his chariot and ran ahead of it until he could see Hrungnir and Mist Calf. They stood side by side, and Mist Calf's heart thumped inside him. Telfi shouted,
"Thor can see you! Can you hear me? Thor can see you with your shield raised."
Telfi cupped his hands around his mouth, and he continued to shout,
"Can you hear me, Hrungnir? Put it on the ground. Stand by your shield. Thor will come at you from below.
Then Hrungnir laid his stone shield on the ground and stood on it. He grasped his hone with both hands. In that moment he saw Hrungnir standing on the stone fence house. Thor brandished his hammer and hurled it at him. The giant was assaulted by blinding forked flashes and clasps of thunder. Hrungnir saw the hammer flying towards him. He drew back his hone and aimed it straight at Mjolnir. The hammer and the hone met in midair and dazzling flash, followed by a crack that could be heard through the 9 worlds.
Crack.
The hone was smashed into 100 little fragments, and the shrapnel fell in every direction. One piece flew to Midgar and splintered again as it crashed into the ground, and every bit is a whetstone quarry. Another piece whistled through the air and lodged into Thor's head. The strongest of all gods was badly wounded.
Ow!
He fell out of his chariot and his blood streamed over the earth. But Thor's hammer found its target, despite the hone. Mjolnir still struck Hrungnir on his forehead and crushed his skull. The giant tottered and fell, and one of his massive legs pinned Thor down by the neck. When Mistcalf saw Thor, he was terrified, and he sprang a leak and peed uncontrollably. That's exactly what it says. He was terrified. He sprang a leak and peed uncontrollably. It's so sad.
That giant clay man was the worst thing they could have possibly built to help themselves. He'll protect us. Nope. He's pissing himself and crying.
Then Talfi swung his axe and attacked Mistcalf, the giant with feet of clay. Talfi hacked at his legs, and Mistcalf could not have enough strength in his body to fight back.
I just wanted to live.
He lurched and toppled backwards and fell, and his fall shook Jotunheim. Every giant heard him fall, and they knew what had happened at Stonefence House. Thor growled,
"My head!"
Talfi inspected the piece of whetstone stuck in Thor's head. And Talfi said,
"It's in better shape than Hrungnir's head."
He seized the giant's leg and tried to lift it and release Thor. But Talfi, it was like trying to lift up a trunk of a tree. He was unable to move it even an inch. And Thor said,
"Get help."
Talfi put his fleetness of foot to good use. And it was not long at all before the gods hurried out of Asgard and came to Grotungardar, rejoicing.
The stone house.
Rejoicing at Thor's great victory and anxious to release him. One by one, the strongest of the gods tried to lift the giant's leg, but none of them, not even Odin himself, was able to do anything about it. The last to reach Stone Fence House was Magni, the son of Thor and the giantess Saxa. Hey. What's her name? Jarn Saxa. Jarn Saxa. He was 3 years old, and when he saw how the gods were unable to release his father, he said,
"Now let me try."
Magni stooped, grasped Hrungnir by the heel, and swung the giant's foot away from his father's neck. All the gods cried out in wonder, and Thor quickly got to his feet. Magni said,
"It's a pity I didn't come sooner. I had met a giant. I have struck him dead with my bare fist."
Thor warmly clasped an iron glove hand onto his son's shoulder and said,
"You make me proud, son. If you go on as you've begun, you'll become quite strong. Commit many genocides, just like your father."
Magni says,
"My mother is an iron cutlass, and I am the son of thunder."
And Thor says,
"Ha ha ha! What's more, I'm going to give you gold mane. Take Hrungnir's horse as a reward, kiddo."
Odin sharply says,
"No, you shouldn't give such an uncommonly fine horse to the son of a giantess, instead of to your own father."
Thor took no notice. He clasped his hands and his banging head and rode back to Asgard, followed by the Aesir. Only Odin complained, and the other gods gave thanks that good had prevailed over evil and that they seemed quite safe again. as safe as they had ever been. When Thor got to Thrungsvang and walked into his own hall, Bilkernir, the whetstone was still stuck in his head. So he was sent to Midgard for the Sibyl Groa, the wife of Ardvandil the Brave. The wise woman hurried up over the Bifrost, and all night she chanted magic words over Thor. Charms and spells.
Alakazam! Zippity-doo-dah-day!
Charms and spells known only to her.
Expelliarmus!
And Jesus. And as she sang, the hone began to work loose.
If you like pina colada.
And the hammering in Thor's head began to fade.
Getting out in the rain.
It seemed less like pain than the memory of pain. Thank you. Thor was so thankful that he wanted to make Groa happy. He said,
I have a surprise for you.
Groa said,
Nothing could surprise me.
Thor says,
This will. Yeah, I could make it bounce. Not long ago, I was in the north and I met your husband, Ardvandil the Brave.
Oh, Groa stiffened. And then she began to...
That's not the only thing that's stiffened.
And then she began to shake her head sadly.
Oh, no.
Thor said,
You may think he's dead, but I brought him out of Jotunheim. I waded across the streams of Venom. Elvigar, carrying him in a basket strapped to my back.
Groa gruffly says,
Stiff.
Not because she wanted to disbelieve Thor, but because she did not dare to believe him.
I almost thought that was just like an insert. She says stuff. She told him some words and things.
Stuff. Not nonsense. That was their way of saying bullshit back then.
It's bullshit.
Stuff. Thor asks,
Do you need proof?
Groa says,
Mm-hmm.
Thor says,
All night, you've sung charms over my head. It is almost as morning. Come with me. I do like pina coladas.
The thunder god led her the way out of Bilksknir into the silent courtyard. And Thor said,
Look.
And he pointed into the sky and said,
Have you ever seen that star?
Groa frowned and shook her head. Thor smiled faintly and said,
One of Alvandil's toes stuck out of the basket and froze. So I broke it off and hurled it into the heaven. Now and always, that star will be known as Arvald's toe.
Groa's heart was pounding. Her eyes shone with tears of
Her
joy.
husband didn't come home,
And
though.
Thor said,
He's been rescued and he still hasn't come home. Let's put some thought to that for a minute. When did you do that? No, that was like 6 months ago. I dropped him off like a block from here. He said, whatever you do, never tell my wife. Oh, God. Now, are you satisfied? And I'll tell you one more thing. It won't be long at all now before your husband gets home.
Groa felt as if nothing else in the world had ever mattered, and she felt as if there was no way in which she could properly thank Thor. Thor said,
Only finish your charms and spells, then I too will be happy.
Groa looked at Thor and gaped, and Thor said,
The charms.
The Sibyl's head and heart whirled and her body raced around her body. She was so excited that she could not recall a single charm. Thor fretfully said,
Margaritaville. No, that wasn't it. Think, woman, God damn it.
Groa buried her face in her hands, but it was no good. Thor roared.
Camellia. No, not that one.
Thor roared.
Think, woman, think, God damn it.
His eyes blazed and his red beard bristled.
Your husband's never coming home.
But Groa was able to think only of her husband, Ardvadil, homecoming, and end of a shining star. Thor sent her packing with a bellow of fury, and this is why the whetstone remained in Thor's head.
He never got it. She could never remember the charm. She just kept going through other songs from that generation.
She fucking healed it into his head. She's like, oh shit, I'm so sorry.
Cheeseburger in paradise. Nope, not that one.
Yeah. And that's it.
That's it, folks. I hope you've enjoyed our volume 8 of Norse Tales.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just trucking our way through the sagas.
Yeah, we're probably going to have to go through 4 of them on the next one.
Mm-hmm. We're going to knock out some sagas. Yeah, I do like how violent Thor is, though.
Yeah?
And I mean, I don't.
He's just
but
a fucking
his
dick.
son is also incredibly violent, so.
Seems like he's just going to be
I committed a genocide on the way here, Papa. Are you proud?
Yes, son, I am.
Yes, son, I am proud of you. Remember, if it's over 6'4", hit it with your hammer.
Boys are always so much like their fathers. Yeah. I can just think mom's at home like, fuck.
Yeah, Sif is at home growing her hair back like, God damn, my son's a monster.
It's not Sif's.
Oh, that's right. It's a Giants kid.
Fuck.
Yeah, that's right. Thor be slinging dick. He is putting down the hammer, if you know what I mean.
Jenna Saxa.
Jenna Saxa. Yeah. Yeah. So this was fun. It was a good time. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow. Our source for this was the Prose Edda, but the book we used for a lot of our references was the Norse Myths, introduced and retold by Kevin Crossley Holland.
And he has donated this book to his mother.
To his mother.
Was very sweet.
That is very nice. To my mom.
For my mother.
He donated it to your mother. Oh!
She doesn't deserve.
She doesn't deserve Norse Tales.
Take it back. Give it to her and then take it back.
Just like give it to her and take it back.
Like, wait like a week. Then go back and get it.
Yeah. But yeah, let people know. Most of our advertising is word of mouth. So, all you listeners, you tell people that you love us and they'll listen to. And we appreciate each and every one of you.
Let me know that you did. If you want a fucking little sticker,
we'll send you something. Just hit us up. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, Howley Boys, HAOLE_BOYS.
Yeah.
Yeah, Howley Boys Productions on
I like printing
Facebook.
Stickers.
Yeah.
Car stickers.
Car stickers.
Come get them.
Anyway, you folks have fun and tune in next week for some more fun.
Bye.